Hey guys, what's up? It's your boy T for 365 Horror, and this is a horror movie discovery channel. I am just here to put as many horror movies on your watch list as possible, and we're going to be looking at every brand new horror streaming release for the week of November 3rd, plus getting into my trailer reactions. So let's get into it right now. Now we're going to get into the video, but before we do, I've got to remind you guys to please like and subscribe. And personally, I had a great Halloween. I hope everybody out there had a good Halloween and a good spooky season overall. I think we did pretty good for releases. There was a lot of new movies and we did catch up on a few. Plus, I watched a lot of movies this month, just trying to kind of get in the spirit, so that was good. Halloween night itself was really good and fun. Me and my girl had a great time, gave out candy for a little bit before we did our thing. We dressed Aura up as like a little, it was just like a little onesie pumpkin thing, but so many people thought she was cute and gave her like all kinds of love, and she just was like out of her mind seeing like all these different people in costumes. She was a little bit skittish at first, but she definitely got over it. So yeah, overall it was a great Halloween weekend. I took in a couple of movies and we're gonna get into those. So I hope you guys all had a good Halloween season too, and now you're ready for the inevitable cold coming. But before we get deep into it, let's get into a couple of things I watched. And the first movie I watched this week was Protein, and that was the movie about the serial killer who like ate a drug dealer for protein. It was actually a pretty good movie, a pretty good crime horror. It was just very raw. Like right off the bat, you get some pretty like brutal kills. He does consume, some bodies, so you get to see a lot of kind of gore slop just lying around. So it's a pretty gory movie. And another thing that I liked is that it did have kind of a bit of a B movie feel, but it shows you it had really good dialogue and humor. It just goes to show you that sometimes some of these more B movie movies can still produce like something good without seeming like totally hokey and cheesy. And the next movie I watched, I partook in my yearly tradition, and that was VHS Halloween. And again, this was another movie I liked, but I like the VHS series, and they are a little bit polarizing. I notice in the comments a lot of people think it's garbage, and I think I kind of, when I watch this one, like I said, I like to take things in from all angles and, take what people say and try to consider them. And so when people were saying, oh, it's garbage, this time I kind of watched it with a little bit of a different frame of mind, and I liked it, and I still like the Halloween movies, but they are just kind of like lighthearted. I don't think you're supposed to get something like super serious and scary. So if you're going in thinking you're getting like a Conjuring feel, meaning just like a more serious supernatural thing, they're really just kind of lighthearted stories. And you got to remember that it's an anthology, so they really only have so much time to kind of set up and conclude the stories. So yeah, I could see how some people would just think it was kind of garbage, but I actually liked the stories. I thought they were good. I thought the sub story of the pop sub story, or I guess in some places soda sub story, was really good. Yeah, and it was just really gory, as these movies always are. Great gory found footages, and I think it was like one of the first two stories, I believe even the first one actually had some like decent creeps, and it just had a couple of scares. It was actually a pretty decent movie, but again, you have to go into it knowing that you're getting something like a little bit more light-hearted, almost zany to a degree, but not quite. All right, but let's get into some new stuff. This week, the first movie we're going to take a look at is a crime horror thriller named Dorothea. And this movie is available on Google Play, Apple TV, and Prime Video.
It's the little things in this world that make it all worthwhile.
A twisted true crime nightmare where serial killer granny Dorothea Puente lures the vulnerable, kills without remorse, and buries the secrets in her garden. Evil wears a smile, and you'll never trust kindness again. It is directed by Chad Farron. All right, so after watching the trailer for Dorothea, this one looks like a middle-of-the-road true crime horror. I do like the fact that this movie is based off the true story of the Death House landlady, and being a big kind of true crime fan, it is a story that I've heard before. And at least in the trailer, I thought that Dorothea did a good job of just looking the part. She just had this kind of diabolical, mean look, and would be someone that I personally was kind of weary renting a room from. But acting wise, yeah, it just kind of slips at parts and some of the B-movie veneer just kind of peeks through. Still, I think that Dorothea could be a lot of fun if you do like and are into those kind of true crime horror vibes. But personally for me, as much as I like the story of Dorothea and I think that it's a good kind of gritty movie, I think this one's still gonna land just a little bit of a lower spot on my watch list.
Your checks are for more than the roof over your heads. They're also to keep the booze, drugs, and other social maladies from reinfecting you.
Keep a happy face. All is fine. Make them think that I'm listening to their grievances.
I'm Alvaro, 51 years old.
77 years old.
67, 55.
78, 64. 64 years old.
I'm gonna die
At the hands of
Dorothea Point.
Next movie we're going to take a look at is a straight horror named The Beldham. And this movie is available on Apple TV, Google Play, and Prime Video. A struggling new mother fights a generations-old presence lurking within her family home, threatening her safety, her sanity, and the life of her infant child. It is directed by Angela Gallner. All right, so after watching the trailer for The Beldham, this one looks like a pretty good thriller horror mix. So right away I'm into it because it's got that slow burn creep vibe hitting us right from jump. And you know me, I love me some good creeps. And I think that the main character's psychotic break looks intense, with some weird and genuinely interesting visions. And I've got to say that the Patricia Heaton casting also kind of piqued my interest, because I'm only used to seeing her in things like Everybody Loves Raymond or The Middle, not really these roles where she's spiraling into madness. I think this movie is going to live and die by the visions, because if they play them right, I think it maybe could give us something that will surprise us, even though we're watching a story that we've seen 100 times before. Overall, I think The Beldham looks like it's got a few kind of solid scares really tucked in there, so this one's going to get a regular spot on my watch list.
There's something wrong with this place. There's something bad here. I can hear it in the walls. It is in the earth. It is rot. There is an infestation. It's gotten to you too. Look at yourself. You're pale. You're exhausted. You're not acting right. Because
Because there's a witch living in the walls.
I have seen it.
You don't know what you're seeing.
Next movie we're going to take a look at is a drama fantasy horror named Frankenstein. And this movie is available on Netflix. A brilliant but egotistical scientist brings a creature to life in a monstrous experiment that ultimately leads to the undoing of both the creator and his tragic creation. It is directed by Guillermo del Toro. Okay, so after watching the trailer for Frankenstein, this one looks like an interesting, fresh take on a classic. Now, when I was young, my vision of Frankenstein was always just like a big green dude with bolts in his neck and just kind of more of a monster. But once I reached young adulthood, I actually read the original Mary Shelley story, and it is pretty sad at its core. Now, in this film, it does look like they really hearken to that original story because we see Dr. Frankenstein kind of chasing his creation across the icy wasteland. And that gives me hope that we're going to see, like, it's going to be an actual good retelling, and we're going to catch the heartbreak and tragedy of the tale. Now add Del Toro behind the camera and Mia Goth into the mix, and I think we might get a version that really leans into the beauty and tragedy of this monster. And now I do want to give a quick heads up and just point out something that I pointed out in the last few videos, that this movie is a drama first, a fantasy second, and a horror third. So if you're hunting for like jump scares or creeps, then you might have to pick something else. Now, personally, I think Frankenstein looks great, and I love the original source material, but horror is taking a pretty far back seat, so I think this one's only going to land a regular spot on my watch list.
I created something truly horrible.
Not something. Someone.
Next movie we're going to take a look at is a comedy horror named Don't Trip, and this movie is available on Tubi. A struggling writer befriends a powerful producer's eccentric son. It is directed by Alex Kugelman. Alright, so after watching the trailer for Don't Trip, this one looks like a meh to decent comedy horror. Now, from time to time, I can really get into these kind of hijinks movies where, you know, it starts out with like 3 characters chilling in Buddy's room, and by the end of the night, they've traversed 3 states and got into a ton of bad situations. But a lot of the time, I find that just that whole like anything that can go wrong will go wrong vibe, it can be funny, but a lot of times for me, it just ends up being frustrating. And that's probably why a lot of times like comedy horror doesn't quite float my boat. But at least the movie has some solid action, and I find that it leans more into witty than wacky, and that's something I definitely prefer. Overall, I feel like Don't Trip just looks alright. It doesn't look amazing, but it doesn't look terrible. It just looks like a little bit of a fun time. So I think this one's going to get a regular to maybe even a little bit of a lower spot on my watch list. Next movie we're going to take a look at is a straight horror named I Know What You Did Last Christmas. And this movie is available on Prime Video.
Get out.
Former friends at a remote Christmas reunion face deadly consequences when a hunter targets them over their shared secret, a holiday prank that killed a woman last year. It is directed by Gregory William Randolph Jr. Alright, so after watching the trailer for I Know What You Did Last Christmas, this one looks like a meh to decent B-movie slasher. Now, first and foremost, I'm always into the Circle of Friends vibe, and we see a good variety of kills, so that's a plus. Now, if you're into that good B-movie aesthetic, I think this one has it in spades. But if you don't like low-budget slashers or kind of rough around the edges charm, I don't think that this movie is going to win you over. Now, I Know What You Did Last Christmas looks kind of meh, but it may be decent if you're into that kind of B-movie throwback feel. But for me, I think this one's going to get a regular to lower spot on my watch list.
Are we even gonna talk about why we're all here?
So you guys got the invites too? So that's all of us then?
There's only 9 of us here.
But there used to be 10.
One of you set this up. Maybe blackmail, huh?
We didn't let her in.
Guys, we did nothing wrong, right? It's all just some bad luck.
Next movie we're going to take a look at is another straight horror named Deviant. And this movie is available on Prime Video. Javier skips Christmas Eve family dinner for a date made on a kinky dating app. Instead of a romp with a young nubile woman, he is held captive by a depraved middle-aged man and his mean-spirited cookie-craving mother. It is directed by Daniel M. Caniero. Okay, so after watching the trailer for Deviant, this one looks like a raw, held captive horror. And even though we don't see much in the trailer, what we do see is kind of the setup for like a gritty, diabolical torture setting. Even the monologue in the trailer kind of hits hard, and it lays out this brutal revenge story that's dark and horrifying. And with what I think will be like a moral conflict really bubbling underneath this movie, I'm not sure if we're going to end up kind of cheering for the killer or the victim. Only note that this is dubbed as a Spanish horror, and it looks like it's subtitled. And even though I know that's not for everyone, I feel like these foreign films just go harder, and I'm definitely getting that raw edge vibe from what I'm seeing here. Now, Deviant looks like a solid held captive story, and if it really leans into it, I think we may even get like a disturbing torture horror. And since I'm kind of excited to find out exactly how dark this movie gets, I think it's going to get a regular spot on my watch list.
גם הוא, כמו כל יתר הזאבים, אוהב להפתיע ילדות קטנות. רק שהבן זונה האכזרי שלנו לא מסתפק בלבלוע אותה. כמו שאפשר להבחין מהתמונות, לזאבון שלנו הייתה שיטה. בעוגות היה חומר הרדמה, וככה ילדות.
Next movie we're going to take a look at is a straight horror named The Hem, and this movie is available on Apple TV and Prime Video. A documentary crew investigates a haunted church on the verge of collapse with one condition: they must be out by dark. It is directed by Tyler Russell. Okay, so after watching the trailer for The Hem, this one looks like a decent found footage horror. Now, I feel like we're not getting much more than a teaser here, but what we are getting looks promising. Because right off the bat, I love the setting. A haunted, creepy old church mixed with found footage. I feel like those just always bang. Some of the crisis acting we see in this teaser trailer looks genuinely panicked. Not like fake scared, real scared. And I find that goes far in a found footage. Plus, some of those quick, creepy glimpses we do get throughout the trailer makes me think that this will actually have some good tension building and hopefully be packed with a couple of scares. I think The Hem looks like a promising found footage entry, and this one's getting a regular spot on my watch list. Next movie we're going to take a look at is a straight horror named Nahualli, and this movie is available on Prime Video. Mark and his friend Alex travel to Mexico in search of Mark's missing sister, but their plans take a macabre turn when a cursed entity possesses Mark's body, unleashing terror at a bachelor party. It is directed by Fernando San Miguel Villagomez. Alright, so after watching the trailer for Nahualli, this one looks like a meh to decent possession slasher. Now first off, I'll start by giving it some credit because there are a few kind of creepy scenes with some good kind of creeps and scares sprinkled in there. I'm also a big fan of the Circle of Friends vibe, especially in a slasher. But I feel like story-wise, we've definitely seen this one before. At least the setting in the film felt a little bit different, which does help. And the witch entity, it didn't exactly look like super creepy or super good, but there were a couple of instances where you just saw it like right over the person's shoulder, just like, you know, with the eyes kind of bugging. And in those instances, it did have a good little creep to it. Nahualli looks like it might have a good couple of creeps and chills, but nothing really groundbreaking. So I think this one's getting a regular to lower spot on my watch list.
There and find out what happened to the call.
No, this is much different than logging in the mountains.
We're talking search and rescue. Plus,
I know this is gonna sound crazy, but I need you to believe me. All right, listen, I just have this dream. I think that Nicole's calling to me. I know I'm not.
Next movie we're going to take a look at is a straight horror named Baramulla, and this movie is available on Netflix. A police officer investigating missing children cases discovers disturbing truths while supernatural occurrences threaten his family and Baramulla's tranquility. It is directed by Aditya Suhas Jambale. Okay, so after watching the trailer for Baramulla, this one looks like a meh to decent supernatural horror. So for starters, I like that this film is kind of built on a dark premise of child kidnapping, and it definitely has a couple of creeps in the trailer to back it up. Now visually, I think that the movie looks high quality and the effects in it look really solid. And even though this is another kind of foreign film, I did jump on Netflix and check, and it does have an English audio. So for people who don't like subtitles, that's again always a plus. Overall, I think Baramulla looks like an okay-ish thriller horror with a good little touch of mystery. But still, I think it's got to get just a little bit of a lower spot on my watch list. Alright guys, last movie we're going to take a look at this week is a straight horror named Wormtown. And this movie is available on Apple TV and Prime Video.
There's no going back.
When a cult that worships mind-altering parasites takes over a small town, a trio of women in lockdown are dragged into a fight for survival and revenge. It is directed by Sergio Pinero. Okay, so after watching the trailer for Wormtown, this looks like a decent to good cult horror. Now, generally, cult horrors aren't my favorite because I do find them just like a little bit slow, but this one kind of injecting that parasite element instantly made it just a little bit more interesting. And by interesting, of course, I mean gross, because you get like all these worms wriggling, like skin crawling body shots, and just a bunch of kind of overall slime body horror that is enough to give anybody the full-on heebie-jeebies. And on top of that grossness, I just found that the trailer was bloody. and like proper bloody. So I'm expecting a good level of gore the whole way through. Now, Wormtown looks like a gory, skin-crawling ride, and you know me, I'm always in the mood for blood. So I think this one's going to get a regular spot on my watch list.
And as the night ends, let us pray for our neighbors who still walk in the blinding sunlight. We may show them the true light. Mayor Joshua, signing out.
Well, guys, that's going to do it for another episode of brand new releases for you guys to watch and stream. I hope you enjoyed this content, and if you did find a couple of gems for your watch list, please leave me a like and subscribe. Now, if I had to make a couple of picks this week, the first pick again is always going to be just some of the more mainstream titles, because first of all, I like to be part of the conversation. You know, even if it doesn't look like my favorite movie, I want to be able to kind of be there and talk about it with people and not feel like everyone's spoiling the new hotness. And for that reason, I think I am going to check out Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein. I like me a goth, and I just love the original source material. Again, it was an actually like jarring moment when I was pretty young and I read that Mary Shelley story. I just didn't expect it to really go that way, and it made me realize that certain properties they really take a lot of like liberty with when they're putting them in different medias, whether it be cartoons or whatever. So I am interested in seeing a more like true to the classic tale when it comes to this Frankenstein movie. So that's going to be my first pick of the week. And I mean, for my second pick of the week, I'm going to have to do one of my patented multi-picks, because honestly, what am I in the mood for? Like, I feel like if I'm in the mood for something a little bit more disturbing, we could look at Deviant. I just felt like it had that kind of gritty foreign look where we're going to see like slow stabbings. I don't know why, and I don't know if the mother, this cookie-eating mother, is going to be like disgusting and do a bunch of gross stuff. Or I could be in the mood for something a little bit more scary. If I want something with scares and jump scares and tension, I would probably go for The Hem, the found footage movie. Creepy churches, and just the way that film looked right out the gate, I could tell that's going to be like probably the creepy, scariest movie of the week. Or do I feel like sickening myself and being grossed out? And am I going to watch a movie like Wormtown, which just had a ton of gore, and just like puking up worms is just so gross. You know me, I don't like filth. I'm kind of squeamish. So this one will get under my skin. Maybe if you're just like, yo, I fish all the time, worms, I eat them. Like maybe then it won't hit the same for you. But for me, it just looks pretty gory. And so it's going to be one of those three for my second pick of the week. Well, guys, I'm out of here for real this time, as I have got a ton of movies to watch. If you've made it this far into the video, thank you. I appreciate you. I appreciate all your support. I hope you've been taking care of yourselves, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.
No, dude, there is no gun. If we had a gun, it definitely would be a 92 FS Beretta single-action semi-auto pistol with an open slide, short recoil, delayed locking block system.